So now it's official. It is less than 3 weeks away from Election Day, and today in the state of North Carolina, we do have early in-person voting starting. Now, as of the time of this recording, I don't have any data or statistics. I haven't heard if anything is record-breaking or not, like we've seen in Georgia. But suffice to say, I went ahead and looked at a live stream from Asheville, North Carolina, one of the liberal bastions of North Carolina, and there is a huge line there in a place that was ravaged by a hurricane coming through there. So this is good news for the Democrats. Hopefully today we'll get a little bit more of an idea what's happening in tonight's live stream. I might mention that as well. But as of right now, no indication if we're seeing record numbers or not. But we will have some numbers tomorrow. So in tomorrow's video, I'll definitely be able to share something with you regarding those early numbers. Now, on the other hand, when we talk about Georgia, they are having record-breaking days. Even though their website is a little bit down right now, they're at a 9.4% turnout rate, which before early voting, they were like at a 0.5% turnout rate. So people are turning out to vote big time, and the numbers are going up. And this is throughout the state. So with the record numbers that we have for early voting, does this help Democrats or does this help Republicans? And in the early stages, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, it does help Republicans very slightly as of right now. Now, remember, I mentioned in yesterday's video that when we look at early in-person voting, it's not necessarily a Democratic blowout. Yes, the Democrats do quite well in it, but it is a lot closer than people think. It is that mail-in vote that actually has the discrepancy, but is only about 6% of the overall vote. So let's go ahead and look at the turnout rates as of right now for Democratic-leaning counties and Republican-leaning counties. So let's go ahead and start with the Democratic ones first. So as of this recording, the statewide turnout in the state of Georgia is 9.4%. And as you can see, Fulton County, a strong Biden county and where Atlanta is located, it is actually performing better than the state as a whole. So that is great. And Fulton County has been doing a really good job pumping out that vote. Cobb County, a slightly Democratic county, but trending more and more Democratic each and every year, is under the percentage of the statewide percentage. DeKalb County is essentially right at where it needs to be for turnout. Gwinnett County, as I have mentioned in previous videos, is the problem child for the Democrats. As you can see, that turnout rate is nearly 2% lower than the statewide average, and that is a big, big problem for Democrats right now, and one of the reasons why they're not doing as strong, because Gwinnett is a very large county. Clayton County, not as big of a county, but a large African-American population. Their percentage of turnout is near what the state is. Now, if we go over to Richmond County, we see that it's down to 7.3%. Henry County, just outside of Atlanta as well, is at 10.7%, so doing quite well. Chatham County at 8.9%, slightly under the state average. Clark County, which is where Athens, Georgia is, University of Georgia, significantly down 5.7%, and Muskogee County, 10.1%, is doing quite well. So as you can see with the Democratic numbers, they're kind of all over the place. Some counties are doing really well, like Fulton County, which is important for the Democrats. Some counties are doing quite bad, like Gwinnett County, a large county that the Democrats need that vote to turn out, and Clark County, where you have a lot of students going to the University of Georgia, where Athens is. That is performing low. But I don't look at a lot of this right now and say, okay, this is doom and gloom for the Democrats. I think after the weekend, we will see a change, because usually with Democratic voters, the weekends are when they turn out to vote. The first weekend is usually a big weekend, but it's like the second weekend, the one right before Election Day, can be a very big Democratic turnout day. So watch those numbers on the weekends and we'll see how that trends. But now let's go ahead and look at the most Republican counties. And when I mean the most Republicans, I mean the ones that had the largest margins for Donald Trump in the last presidential election as far as raw vote totals. So let's go ahead and look at those. So if we go ahead and look at the Trump places where Trump did the best as far as raw vote, see, Cherokee County is actually where Trump had the largest gap of raw votes. The turnout rate is actually down from the statewide rate, but you see Forsyth County doing quite well, Hall County also doing quite well, and Coweta County also doing quite well. And this is very important as to why the Republicans are doing really well in this initial day or two of early voting. Bartow County is down pretty significantly from what we see statewide. When we look at Walton County, we see that it is right at the state average. We look at Paulding County, and we see that is significantly lower at 7.2. Jackson, Carroll, and Columbia, we can see a mixed bag. Carroll County, significantly lower. So you can see Coweta, Forsyth, and Hall County are really booing this vote for Trump right now, or the Republicans, and they are very, very high. Eventually, I see the Democratic numbers getting up to the numbers that they are at, but we see this initial push in these more suburban and maybe exurb counties of the Atlanta area. They're the ones that are pushing up the Republican totals a little bit more. So as of right now, I would say we really can't glean too much from the numbers from Georgia, because we really need to see what happens this weekend. We need to see the numbers that come out even today. And even though they are slightly better for the Republicans, it does seem like the Democrats are in an okay position to replicate what they've done in previous elections in which they have won. So the trend, we really can't delve into it right now and say this is the way it's going to go. We just have to wait a few days. And after the weekend, if it is a little bit off, that's when maybe we should be focusing on if this is going to be a good year for Democrats in Georgia or not. And with that being said, let me go ahead and go into the nowcast. So with the Georgia numbers, we do have a new nowcast for Georgia, a way more accurate nowcast for Georgia. Though, as I mentioned, a lot of votes are coming in today as well. So that's going to change even by the end of the night. With North Carolina getting votes, that's going to change as well. Over the next few days, and especially from next Monday and on, we are going to start getting a ton of votes from key states, all of these battleground states, because we're almost going to have all of the in-person voting starting in a lot of these states. Florida starts on Monday. Wisconsin starts on Monday. So we're going to see some major votes coming in, especially in a state like Wisconsin, where 80% of the vote usually is early voting, either mail or in person. So let's go ahead and look at where the voting trend nowcast models are as of right now. And just a reminder, these are nowcast models. They basically say if the election ended now, what would the vote be? So let's go ahead and look at the nowcast models. All right, so here we are in Arizona. And as you can see, a few more votes have now started to come in that we can start getting an idea of what's happening in the state of Arizona. So we have a little bit, slightly over a 4% turnout rate, and the geographical accuracy of this model is 0.9483. As I've mentioned in other videos, that is out of 1. So a 1 you'll never get, but we look for a geographical accuracy of 0.95. Anyway, if we look at the current projection of votes, of those who have voted right now, it would break down that the Republicans would win 89,000 of those, with the Democrats winning roughly around 68,000. Now, the reason why the Democrats are doing so poorly here is right now in Maricopa County, the Republicans really do have an advantage. So we are seeing this model being more geographically representative of the state, but Maricopa County is voting way more Republican to start. Unless those numbers change, we can see a little bit of problems for the Democrats, but we only are expecting 41% of the vote to be early vote, pre-election day vote. So now if we look at the Florida model, it is getting a little bit better with the 2 hurricanes coming through. We now have some counties that weren't counting before now counting. So we see that Florida is now at a 6.61% turnout rate, which is significantly lower than what we were at this time in 2020 and is pretty much where we were in 2022. The turnout rate in pre-election day polling has been poor, but on Monday we do have in-person early voting starting. So you see the geographical accuracy of this model is at a 0.8475, so not where we really want it right now. And of the pre-election day vote, we expect 65% of that based on the 2020 numbers. But of course, that number looks like it might go significantly lower. We have to see what happens in early in-person voting. But of those who have voted so far, the Democrats, according to the voting trend nowcast projection, would have the Democrats winning 436,000 to the Republicans 390,000. So the Democrats are in a position of advantage as of right now, even with this low turnout rate. And actually these numbers and the gaps for the Democrats have been pretty stagnant. So that's actually good. But again, once Monday comes in, we should see this gap narrow. The question is, how much after Monday do we see this gap narrow? So now we are at the Georgia nowcast model. So this has the data as of yesterday, and you can see it says there is an 8.86% turnout rate. As I already mentioned earlier in this video, they are already up to 9.4. So even these numbers are a little bit outdated. So as we can see, the geographical accuracy is at a 0.9685. So it's looking pretty good. And the early vote back in 2022, 64% of the general election vote was early pre-election day voting. So we could be on track to see that in Georgia right now with the in-person voting. As we can see right now, the Republicans do have the edge. If the election were to end now with this 8.86% turning out the votes, the current projection states that the Republicans would win about 317,000 to the Democrats 286,000. But again, we're only 2 days into early voting. We're only at 8.86%. These numbers are likely going to change. All right, so let's go ahead and look at Michigan. And Michigan is now over 10% turnout, 10.17. And the important thing to remember with Michigan is that turnout in Michigan is usually pretty low, in the mid 60s usually, maybe the low 70s. So if this is one of the highest turnout states right now, that bodes well, honestly, for the Democrats, I think. As you can look at the geographical accuracy, we're at a 0.9970. You can't get more accurate than that. And of the current projection right now, we see that Democrats, if the election were to end now, would win 444,000 to the Republicans 381,000. Honestly, where the votes are coming in for the Democrats in Michigan right now looks really, really good. And in 2022, 50% of the vote was pre-election day voting, and that actually might go up substantially. If that turnout rate goes to over, let's say, 32 to 33% before election day, then we're going to see a number that was higher than that 2022 number. That's something to watch out for. And if the Democrats are still doing well at that time, then all of a sudden you do see the Republicans playing catch up in the state of Michigan. All right, so here is the North Carolina nowcast model. As I told you earlier, we don't have any data in for early voting. We probably won't have that until tomorrow. So maybe tomorrow's update, that number will be significantly higher. But we look at the geographical accuracy of the mail-in votes right now, and it looks good at 0.9720. And in 2022, 58% of the vote was pre-election day vote. As of right now, of the votes that have been cast, if the election were to end with 0.88 turnout, Democrats would be winning 37,000 of those, with Republicans winning about 29,000. So it is a little bit close here, but tomorrow we'll get way of a better idea of how this state is starting to shape. Now let's go over to Pennsylvania, and we're at a 7.7% turnout. Now the geographical accuracy is poor because two things. One, as you can see, only 23% of the state actually votes pre-election day, or at least did in 2022. So we expect this number to be low. So that means there might be some geographical discrepancies between some counties doing a lot of pre-election day voting and some other counties doing hardly any. I'm going to be looking a little bit more into that and see how that breaks down. So this is the reason why geographically we're not really seeing a good model. But of those votes that have been cast right now, if it were to stop today to counting, the Democrats would have 478,000 votes to the Republicans 194,000 votes. Again, the reason why this is Democratic counties are voting a lot more in early pre-election day polling with vote by mail or turning in their mail-in ballots. This is the reason for the discrepancy. There's no way that this state is going to be this lopsided. However, looking at this trend right now, it's starting to show that the Democrats do have a slight lead overall in the state if we were to take this as the early votes, and looks good for the Democrats, though it is starting to get a little bit closer. So we'll keep an eye on that. If we look at Texas, we hardly have any of the vote in. You can see geographical accuracy isn't there. And the Republicans are winning right now. I just wanted to show you this one just to show you the updated numbers in Texas. All right, so finally, let's go to Wisconsin. As you can see, we have just a hair under 8% turnout. We see the geographical accuracy is really good. But if the election ended right now, the voting trend nowcast projects that the Democrats would win 143,000 to the Republicans' 130,000. So even though it's close, the Democrats do have a pretty decent, strong lead in the state of Wisconsin. And with 80% of the vote in 2022 being pre-election day polling, we should see these numbers start going up exponentially come Monday when in-person voting starts in Wisconsin. All right, so as you can see in the Rust Belt, it is looking good for the Democrats. However, once that in-person voting, early in-person voting starts, that gap is going to start narrowing. So even though we're seeing a gap now, that should be narrowing. But in the state of Georgia, what we want to see is if the gap is expanding. One state that I didn't show today where the gap continues to expand for the Democrats is Virginia. Virginia is essentially now a lock for the Democrats when it comes to the win. They are just getting more and more and more wide as far as the projected vote there. So Virginia looks good. Still haven't received any new numbers from Minnesota, so there's no new Minnesota models. But Arizona and Nevada we can't get much from because Clark County has hardly reported anything. There are some small minor counties that actually have more votes than Clark County, so we can't figure out anything from that. But Maricopa being like significantly Republican right now should be a worry for Democrats. But again, we're only at 4% of the vote. So hopefully in the next few days, we'll see more of that early vote come in. Only around 40% of the vote in 2020 was early vote in Arizona. So most of it's going to be on election day. Okay. So that's a look at the numbers and the nowcast. We'll see what happens on North Carolina. But as far as Georgia, it looks a little for the Democrats, but definitely room to catch up because we're expecting a lot more votes come in this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They're going to be the key days for Democrats. All right. Thank you all very much for joining me in this video. I will see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day wherever it is you are. Bye-bye.